Hi, I'm Andrew Meese, Chief Investment Officer for Meridian. Thanks for joining us for another segment of Your Question Answered. Today, the question we're going to tackle is, what's the outlook for corporate profitability? So when you look at the stock market, there are two drivers for its valuation: the price-to-earnings ratio and corporate profitability or corporate earnings. In our previous segments, we talked about the decline that the PE ratio for the S&P 500 has experienced this year due to the increase in interest rates. And so today we're going to take the other side of that equation and what's our outlook for earnings. The graph you see on your screen shows you the actual revenue per share for the S&P 500 going back to year 2000. And what you see is that it has ebbs and flows, and there's shaded areas on the graph, and those shaded areas represent times of recession. And during recession, typically you see revenues decline. We then lay in a red straight line, dotted straight line, and that shows you the trend for corporate revenue going back over this period of time. And this is useful because we can extend that line out, and it shows us what is the trend expect for corporate revenues over the next several years. When you look at this data, you see that the current revenue per share is as far above trend as we've ever been. And that's driven by two factors primarily. Number one, the fiscal stimulus that we saw from Washington, D.C. post-COVID. And number two, the very easy financial conditions provided by the Federal Reserve. Both of those are in retreat. The fiscal stimulus payments have ended, and the Federal Reserve is tightening financial conditions. The reason that the fiscal stimulus is so important is because the way the economy works, when Washington, D.C. sends money out to individuals and to small businesses, over time, almost all of that stimulus ends up on the income statements of the largest companies. That's just how the U.S. economy works. So going back to our question, which is what is the outlook? When you look at the data and you look at what's changed, we think that it's likely that corporate revenues are going to trend back over time towards the trend line. But that's not what Wall Street is currently forecasted. And so we've added in now the dotted lines showing the forecast for the next couple of years for corporate revenue. And you see it's a continuation of the very strong growth. We think that's optimistic, and we think that it's likely that over the next several years, corporate revenues will revert back towards the trend line. That can happen a couple of ways. We could have a couple of years or several years of very modest revenue growth, or we could have a recession, which would be induced by what the Federal Reserve is doing right now by tightening, raising interest rates and tightening financial conditions. But either way, we think that the outlook that Wall Street's presenting is too optimistic. Thank you for your time. Please reach out to your advisor if you have any further questions. Have a great day.